Okay, we're recording. So this is the March meeting of the FAC. Let's begin by approving some past minutes. So I put the December minutes, they are posted, the draft minutes are posted on the website. So we have approved March minutes. We did that at the last meeting. It's a very quick turnaround from February, so we don't have draft minutes from February, so we'll skip those for now, but we should get the December minutes approved, and I don't think we did that in January. So the link is in the chat for those of you who want the link to where they are posted on the Board of Regents website, and then I will email the link to Jen.
I was able to copy and paste it. You don't need to email me.
Oh, perfect. Thanks, but just sent anyway. But all right, and now that I'm done doing that, I will I have way too many things open. Okay. Any motions to approve the December minutes? Do we need another minute?
Motion to approve the December minutes.
Thank you, Lori. Do we have a second?
I'll second. It's John.
Okay. And let's just go with any opposed? Any abstentions?
I'll abstain because I wasn't there.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and all in favor? We'll take yes. All right, perfect. Okay, thank you for that. Now for the approval of the agenda, which is super duper light. We're meeting really quickly after the last meeting because we thought that right before spring break might not be the best time. So I can't find the right screen. You know what? I'm just going to, it's just chair and vice chair reports. We are striking the discussion of the transfer council because the person who was supposed to come present to us today is not able to make it after all. Old and new business, and then adjournment. And as far as the transfer council, I think we should try to put it on for next month with some other folks. Okay, so approval of past minutes, which we've done, adoption of the agenda, chair and vice chair reports, old new business, adjourn. Motion to approve the agenda.
So
Okay, I
moved.
see you, Mark, and
I'll second, Laurie.
great. All in favor? Okay.
Aye.
All right. Okay, so let's get going then. See if I can. Brendan, do you want to begin or would you like me to? in terms of
I can
reports?
hold off. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I am looking for the exact number. We have increases in enrollments for all students types. And I think this was some of this was presented this morning at the ASA meeting. Lloyd Blanchard, CFO Lloyd Blanchard, he kind of attributes it to maybe rebounding from the pandemic. So I'll just very quickly go through some of the student demographics info that he laid out today. There's a lot of detail in the actual ASA agenda packet, but these are sort of like the outtakes, right? So 1/3 of CT State students are first gen, and about 1/4 of university students are first gen. And we are pretty much majority minority students at both, like throughout the system. 44% of students received Pell at CT State, and 43 at Charter Oak, 39 at the universities, for an average of about 42% Pell recipients in the system. CT State retention is 65%, and CSU retention rate is 77%. The transfer rate from CT State to the universities is on average about 14%, highest at Manchester at 19%, and then Middlesex 18%, Housatonic, Naugatuck Valley, and Tungus are right behind at 17%. He very wisely did not really pay much attention to the graduation rate at CT State, because we know that the graduation rate for community college is very misleading. It happens to be 18%, but he emphasized that this is not a meaningful number. There's no data yet for Charter Oak, and it is 50% for the CSUs. In terms of part-time students, system-wide, 34,000 of our 64,000 students are part-time. 2/3 of CT State's enrollments are part-time. Almost all are part-time at Charter Oak, and at the universities, a little over 1/3 are part-time. And that would affect also the graduation rates, why that 50% number is, within a certain amount of semesters. And then completions in terms of spring of 24 is broken down by program in that agenda, if you're interested in looking at that. And we graduate about 12,000 students per year from the system. And that's not including the certificate students. Those are not included in the graduate numbers. So that was just this morning at the ASA meeting. Thought that was really interesting. There was also a lot of discussion about how food pantries are functioning throughout the system, and a few other things, but those were the more system-wide aspects, I think. As far as the last full meeting of the BOR, the mid-year spending report, I don't know if you're going to cover this, Brendan, did make it to the full board. And also there was more conversation about the level of reserves and why such a high level of reserves, etc. And there was kind of I would say maybe a difference in perspective about it. I know that the representative of OPM on the board, Charlene Casamento, sort of framed it in terms of why with such a high level of reserves, why would the system be asking for as much as it is asking for from the state? But I think an alternative view, and this was sort of the substance of it was, I think, expressed by the student regents when they drew attention to just the challenges in our facilities, pointing out that there are broken elevators, there are unsafe buildings, etc. One student even pointing out that these could lead to legal actions that would be even more expensive. So I think, an alternative view of this is why such high reserves when there's such great need at the campuses. Why are they reviewed as reserves and not money that should be budgeted to meet urgent needs? And ideally not these capital projects, these building needs, because that's a different pot of money, but actual, you know, educational needs. Because while we talk about wraparound services a lot, we should also be talking about what goes into the classroom. So I think that is most of it in terms of our board meetings. Trying to think of, they had a couple executive sessions, but I think I also mentioned that it might be worthwhile to just take a glance at this newly created BOR governance committee has been putting out certain kinds of recommendations, like they're reviewing bylaws, and they put out a document on the roles and responsibilities of board members. So that was included in the last BOR meeting packet also. It is, you know, it may or may not warrant discussion. I hope some of you have looked at it and may have some thoughts. I certainly have some thoughts, but I'll get to that at some point, I think. And yes, I think now that is it. Now, as far as the state legislature, right as we speak, there is a higher education committee meeting at which they're considering both the expansion of what used to be PACT is now, I guess, are we calling it MAHA, the Mary Ann Hanley Award, to the universities as opposed to just CT State. And I believe it actually got vocal support from our system leadership also, right? So that's happening right at this moment. They're also considering a bill that would require that there is a cafeteria at every campus of CT State, which seems like it should go without saying, but has to be said. So yes, that's it for me, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have much to add beyond that. One thing I did want to mention regarding the cafeteria and food insecurity issues on across our campuses. I was kind of recruited to show up at a public hearing regarding the capital gains tax proposal, but during that public hearing, there was also a discussion of it was like a sugary drink tax that was the proceeds of which were going to be used, I think, in K through 12 for meals. And for some reason, I just, in my own mind, I was kind of connecting the issues we're facing to that tax. I don't know if it has any chance of passage or, you know, how much money that would provide, but it seems like it's another matter in public education dealing with food insecurity, where there's a specific revenue mechanism, and I don't know, feel like certain people want that answer before they commit to any new spending. So maybe that's something to look at in the future, if we were to work in coalition with K through 12 on that, if it doesn't get through this year. Yes, as Kalina mentioned, we do have expansion of the Mary Ann Hanley award to CSUs. That's working its way through the system right now in the legislature. We have a study that was done by the Upjohn Institute outlining the cost of that expansion under certain assumptions. We were able to do that study because of a grant from the AFT National, and we also have some student interns working on this topic as well. So we're really hopeful that we'll be able to get something underway, despite sort of the resource constraints that we hear about fairly regularly. And so after this meeting, I'm going to be driving to Hartford. I'm number 158 during the public hearing, and I'm starting to get pretty good at forecasting when my number comes up, which my guess would be sometime around 7 o'clock. I don't know what the over under is on that, but I will be testifying in favor of it. Excuse me. And we have gotten a lot of very favorable feedback from legislators on that push. Yet I do want to just lay out there that it seemed like Chair Gway was interested in getting suggestions from various parties about how to approach the reserve balance, which is somewhere around $600 billion and growing each year. I do think food security should absolutely be high on the priority list. But it occurred to me that perhaps the FAC might be able to provide some suggestions as well. It would seem to me that bolstering our academic programs might be something to at least talk about. It's not clear to me that every discipline, for example, on every campus is sort of equivalently resourced relative to every other discipline. In other words, just due to sort of unfortunate timing, maybe certain departments had people leave, retire, go get jobs elsewhere under hiring freezes. And so those departments at the CSU's disciplines may be more heavily reliant on part-time faculty than others. And so maybe that would be one place to start, because at the end of the day, if you have one full-time faculty member single-handedly holding a discipline together, which I know of at least one discipline where that is the case, it is short shrift for our students in a variety of ways. That person is overextended. They don't have an opportunity to pursue professional development. They may feel like they can't actually go on sabbatical and renew their understanding of their discipline, because again, they're single-handedly holding the whole thing together. Even if you have two people and one thinks about going on sabbatical, that can have a major impact on students. So I would hope that management would take a look at that and think about that as a high priority area to address for our students and the quality of the academic experience that they get. But perhaps we should have a larger discussion about that. I wasn't sure when Chair Gway wanted recommendations on, reserve spending or reserve outlook, but I think that would be an important thing for us to continue to discuss. So it's a very different approach. For many years in discussions, reserves were untouchable. Were not to be even, the thought of even spending them was rarely mentioned in meetings, and there's a very different philosophy now, and I think that's a welcome philosophy. So I just wanted to mention that as well. But yeah, I think that was all I had. Trying to learn more about transfer policy and the way the system office is approaching it. It's a very challenging topic, because I think there are some people who have good intentions. They want to sort of quote unquote grease the skids to make sure that as many credits as possible transfers from CT State to the CSUs within the Gen Ed requirements. But of course, there's a balancing act that we have to take very seriously, which is it's not the case that every Gen Ed is designed the same on our 4 campuses. And it's not the case that there's going to be sort of a perfect mapping from those 4 different Gen Ed programs to CT State's program. And the question for me is, do we know what those mismatches are? Are they serious enough where we have to think very, very carefully about course equivalencies? Or, is the match really good? The credits can transfer seamlessly, and on we go. The role of assessment data is extremely important when it comes to that question. We at the CSUs, because of our accrediting, are required to do ongoing assessment practice of Gen Ed. We take it very, very seriously. And in the absence of corresponding assessment data out of CT State, it's very difficult to have keen insights into what transfer currently is and what it should be. So those are my preliminary thoughts on transfer, but yeah, I'll just kind of stop there.
Thanks. I don't know if there are any comments or responses. I mean, some of us perhaps have participated in some of these things, I'm not sure. But we can revisit the topic, certainly of transfer next time, hopefully with some discussion in between, so we can frame it in the most helpful way. If you don't mind, I'll just jump back in a little bit because I realize I feel like we met so recently that it was like not much has happened, but I did forget that, oh my gosh, it was the beginning of this week. Good Lord, weeks feel so long these days. There was another bill, SB 1414, in higher ed on Tuesday that addresses the ratio of full-time and part-time faculty at CT State. And while there is an issue of contingency across all job descriptions at CT State, it was just most simple to address, the split of full-timers to adjuncts because you can actually talk about that ratio in an easier way. So that aims to get us from, I think, what are we right now? We're at about 75%. There are we have some campuses that are over 80% in terms of teaching workforce adjuncts at CT State. And, Brendan, as you talk about the needs and how to spend the reserves and the fact that we need it in the academic areas also, this is certainly one of those areas because all of the amount of work that it has taken to do the transition to the consolidated college, that we're still rebuilding and all of that, that's a lot of work that is done not by adjunct instructors, and in my personal opinion, shouldn't be done by adjunct instructors because you could never compensate them well enough. You'd have to compensate them like full-timers for them to offer that kind of professional contribution. So it's all borne by full-time faculty, and then staff, etc., same thing. So that bill went through higher ed on Tuesday, and hopefully will also, speak to the need to invest in classrooms. Another thing, just analogous, again, at the level of the legislature, our system, in the same way that we're talking about the use of reserves and being locked up. We have the same issue at the state level where we've got, our fiscal guardrails that lock up a lot of funds that could potentially move towards us. And then in the sort of federal landscape of we don't know what's going to be withheld from us, prevents us from responding quickly to any loss of funding at the federal level. So I think you mentioned, Brendan, the capital gains hearing. But there are many different conversations about revenue and guardrails that sometimes feel tangential or politically sort of political, but they're direct, they're straight line to our funding issue because there's no way to have the conversation about our funding issue without that. So I think that's really interesting. Brendan, the tax on sugary drinks, though it does worry me that it will probably hit the families that are most at risk, right? And the most, right? So it sounds like a regressive tax to me. I'm sure there are other things that we could suggest. So yeah. All right. So like I said, super light agenda because we had this, we're supposed to be talking about transfer, but we will put that off for next time. Any old or new business for the moment? I have one thing that I want to recruit for. Okay, so I know I emailed you all earlier, my sort of new business thing, that we should be running elections for our terms are by calendar year. So we need to do the 26-27 elections. It's just super easy at the universities. Folks just tell us what it is. Charter Oak also just tell us what it is. At the community colleges, it's a little bit different. There was a real effort to make sure that there's representation at every campus, even though the voting members are only at, we can only have so many voting members, because in the consolidation, we were afraid that we would lose, access and services, et cetera, in different places and not be able to hear directly from those places. Now we have a new structure that we are told, it's a presidential structure, is not supposed to affect the way that each of these campuses run, but we still have that. So anyway, point is that at the community colleges, it can be a little time consuming, and it's best to start from the spring if we can, so that people can get their additional responsibilities, et cetera, set for the next, very early for the next academic year, et cetera. So that said, and we can onboard them, et cetera. I was asking if anyone wanted to, had any interest in participating in elections this year. I will definitely be part of it to make sure there's continuity. We know how things are done. We've been doing it a certain way for a while. And I believe, Jen, you've also reached out and said you're willing to do this again. I know she's driving, so might not be able to unmute right now, but I know she has said that she's willing to do elections again. At least one other person, and now or after the fact, think about it and get back to me. Anyone like to volunteer to be part of this elections committee? Oh, you're so enthusiastic, Lois.
I'm self-inflicting my own wounds. I seem to be good at that these days.
All right, thank you. If anybody else is interested, please send an email or let me know now. We'll just get it moving. Okay, anything else? This is amazing how short this meeting is, but it snuck up on us, right? It was this or the Friday before spring break. Anything else or any suggestions for next time? We know we'll talk about transfer council, and I know that I'll have a report draft for the legislature. I'm planning to get it to you like next week. It's just been a little rushed. So, and Brendan, I'm hoping to append your ROI document to it, right? Anything else? Who wants to make the motion? Oh my God, 1:35.
I make the motion.
I second.
Friday. Have a great spring break too.
Record breaking.
Absolutely.